I know it was. Okay. Okay. I don't know what he's saying.
Huh?
I don't know what Nigel's saying. I have no clue.
I don't either.
Okay.
Because I can't read it.
Well, this one's.
It says make sure the phone's at 90%.
Okay.
It's at 100.
Okay. All right. Okay. Just 1 second. Are all the mixer settings correct and everything plugged in? Because I'm only hearing it out of one.
I don't know. My headphones were messed up last week, but now they're working. I don't.
It's
really
just
know.
weird.
We got 20 seconds.
Okay. 20 seconds. All right.
I'm gonna turn it on. Okay.
Okay. Okay, Rob Brown here with you for the Sunday afternoon Sidelines.live wrap-up show. We'll be with you 3 to 5 p.m. Central, 4 to 6 Eastern. And last night in Atlanta, Alabama wins the SEC championship 52-46 over Florida. And that game was probably closer than people thought. A lot more points than it may be the most points that I can remember in an SEC championship game, Jimmy. And now the playoffs have been set. 4 teams. You've got Alabama, Notre Dame, Clemson, and Ohio State. I mean, Ohio State could play 3 games. The national media and their minions out there, their minders, are going to make sure that they're in the college football playoff. And Jimmy, also Texas A&M. I think they made a good case winning on the road against Tennessee yesterday, but they're not going to the playoffs. And Notre Dame had beaten Clemson earlier this season in overtime in South Bend without Trevor Lawrence. This time with Trevor Lawrence in the lineup, it wasn't even a game. And that game was in Charlotte, but Notre Dame is still going to the playoffs. Ohio State and, Alabama, no question. Alabama should be there. They're the top seed. Ohio State, again, it's the Big Ten. They are so lucky that Ohio State, in the 6 games that they played, they won them all, or else they wouldn't have even had anybody else even in contention. The Ole Miss LSU game was interesting last night, Jimmy, and almost over 100 points in that one. It was hard to believe. December 19th, we had the SEC championship game, and we also had regular season games going on. Missouri, Mississippi State. We're going to talk about all of it, but hey, Jimmy. Bottom line, we've gotten this far. The playoffs are coming up. We're going to have bowl games. There's a lot to talk about. Again, we'll be with you 3 to 5 Central, 4 to 6 www.sidelines.live. What are your thoughts about A&M not getting in as the second SEC team? You think that was because Alabama beat them soundly earlier in the season? Or is it just because Notre Dame has such a name and such a brand, they crammed them in there, even though they probably didn't deserve it?
Well, it's one of those situations where the committee saw just an easy way to go, which was going to reduce the amount of criticism they were going to get on a national scale. I mean, you've got Notre Dame and Ohio State that are going to provide big TV ratings. You could almost see it coming from a mile away. If you're in Notre Dame's situation, I'm sure they felt they were going to be really competitive in this game, and they actually blew 3 or 4 chances in the first half. That really took the air out of them. Had they scored on a couple of those, I think it would have been a different game. But they didn't, and again, it took the air out of them, and Clemson just ran them out of the stadium. But when you get beat by 4 touchdowns, well, and you're one game from a playoff situation. I thought they were in serious trouble, but then when you had more time to think about it, they were the only team to beat Clemson, and they had the other big win was at Chapel Hill 2 or 3 weeks ago, and again, just you got to remember the people on that committee. They are of an age where Notre Dame, the legacy and the brand is just huge. And I don't think they could resist also the TV ratings that they would bring. Add to that their opponent would be Alabama. I mean, you've got a monster ratings game there.
Yeah.
And then with Ohio State, Notre Dame, and Clemson, you've got the rematch angle there. But Ohio State is nowhere in the same solar system as last year's Ohio State team.
Yeah, and
especially defensively. Yeah.
Yeah, Notre Dame definitely deserves to be there more than Ohio State. So it's kind of a tough argument to make. And really, the Pac-12 didn't have anybody that was close to being worthy. The Big 12, forget about it. It was really the ACC and the SEC. But the Big 10, Ohio State, they just keep them up there ranked high. You got an early favorite for the national championship?
Well, I think the two semifinal games are, I think they're pretty easy. I think it's going to be Clemson, Alabama.
Again, yeah.
Yeah. I think Alabama's offense, now that they got by a Florida team who was just executing at an A-plus level, they were able to hang on and win that one. I think that's their biggest scare, because Florida really gave you problems, as Saban mentioned, because when they go to the empty backfield and 5 wideouts, it forces the defense to show what their coverage is going to be. And you have 5, in many cases, man-to-man matchups, and there's just not many programs, it doesn't matter who it is, that are going to have 5 players out there with the speed to handle and cover man-to-man those skill position players. As a matter of fact, last night you had 2 or 3 instances where Dylan Moses was stuck on a wide receiver. And Trask just had a tremendous game, and Alabama had no answer for Tony and Pitts. So it was just it was a 60-minute battle royal, and Florida just would not go away. Trask, had a great game, and of course Alabama offensively was great, but it became interesting when on the first 3 possessions of the second half, Bama couldn't score, and Florida scored each time. So it really just became a battle of wills, and Alabama showed they showed the courage of a champion when they were challenged, and all the momentum seemed to be going the other way.
Yeah, and Florida with Pitts is a different team, and ended up 9-2, 9-3 on the season, and thought they would have had. I think their defense, that's their problem, and Todd Grantham and Dan Mullen are going to have to figure that out. But again, Alabama, it doesn't matter, 11-0, and I think they're going to end up 13-0 on the season. It's not going to be a real shocker, but they'll win. And this is going to be Saban, national championship number 7. And I don't think anybody should try to put an asterisk by there and say, oh well, it was a different season, this one really doesn't count. That's absurd. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that Alabama is the best team. And but again, Notre Dame did beat Clemson again without Trevor Lawrence, but they did win at North Carolina. That was a fairly close game for a lot of the 60 minutes, but they pulled away. I think they won 31-17. So yeah, but this is definitely Brian Kelly's best team that he's had in his entire time at Notre Dame. The 2012 team that played Alabama, this team is way better than that team. And I think that they're going to play Alabama. We're going to find out. But it will not surprise me if in that Clemson Ohio State game, Ohio State. I don't know, Jimmy. How good is Ohio State? What the Big Ten? They didn't play. Michigan and Ohio State didn't play. Who was Ohio State? What's their signature win this year? Northwestern.
Well, I guess it would be that and Indiana, which they held on for dear life to beat. Their strength of schedule out of 130 FBS teams was 71.
Yeah.
And nobody else. I'm not sure anybody else had a winning record, but they had nobody ranked certainly. And yesterday they did not look good. Now they had a lot of guys out because of the virus, including their top two receivers, and Fields looked terrible, just like he did against Indiana. So you could tell yesterday that Fields really had no confidence in throwing the ball, had some big turnovers, and they just resorted to handing the ball to Sermon, who set an Ohio State single game rushing record of 331 yards and transfer from Oklahoma. And that was basically their offense. If they would have been in a playoff game, they would have absolutely gotten smoked. But I don't know how many of their players are going to be back in 2 weeks, because I think they reduced their quarantine protocol from being out from 3 weeks to 14 days, or maybe it's 14 to 10, and then 14-day quarantine, an additional 7-day contact period. And now they reduced it to, I think, 10 days on the quarantine, maybe. So it's still very uncertain how many key Ohio State players are going to be available against Clemson.
Yeah, that's a big question that we're going to be getting into as well. Everybody can come back next year. It's a free pass this year, but the question is, how many players are going to come back? We had a bunch of guys quit during the season. You can call it opting out or whatever, but they're quitting. That's what they've done. And now, if you do that, you can't come back next year. I mean, if you enter the draft and sign with an agent, obviously you can't. But if you quit in the preseason on your team and you want to come back next year, are you at full scholarship? Nothing changes. That's what the rule is. I don't know. I wouldn't want to have a bunch of guys on my team that just quit on me this year. I mean, whatever you want to say about the virus, I mean, again, can't be treading water forever. People have got to start swimming back to shore. So that's going to be an interesting angle and it's going to be something fun to watch going forward, because here we are, the playoff, the season's going on, for a long time, but we've got the playoffs are going to be here before we know it, the bowl games and everything. And then you're going to start getting into the transfer portal issue, Jimmy. Do you think this is going to be as chaotic as a lot of people predict? Preseason, everybody seemed to think that college football players would be out of control, spreading, the virus everywhere. And that just wasn't the case. And, there were a handful of teams, maybe 15, 20% of them that played a 10-game season. Everybody missed a game or two. The Vanderbilt, Georgia at the end yesterday was canceled, but I'm just trying to get a handle on this going into the off season. I wonder, winter workouts. At what point, are they going to stop moving the goalposts? This is going to be a lot of fun to watch. And who's going to get into the transfer portal? You've got the early signing period just finished up Friday. Got it again coming up in February. Auburn's out there trying to find a coach. South Carolina's got their coach. Vanderbilt's got their coach. Again, Jake Crane's going to be joining us here in a few minutes. We're going to talk a little about that Auburn situation, but we also want to look at, the rest of the SEC. When you look around, Mississippi State, big win over Missouri. And Mississippi State 51-32 over Missouri. That game was in Starkville. Missouri was a hot team. They'd won 5 of the last 6 games. And all of a sudden, the last 2 weeks against Georgia and Mississippi State, they've given up over 100 points in those last two games. It's unbelievable. If teams, it's almost like they just gave up.
Well, against Georgia, I mean, they just kind of were outmanned. Georgia had better players and more of them, and I think Georgia's a different team right now. Now that they've settled on a quarterback and he's getting the ball to their playmakers.
Yeah.
And Missouri, I think, was just outmanned there. And then last night, I mean, State just they kind of resumed the momentum that they've been able to create the last 3 or 4 weeks. They played great in Athens about 3 weeks ago. Played really well at Ole Miss. Lost a game that could have gone either way, and I mean, hung in there pretty much the whole game against Auburn. So they've been playing much better, and Will Rogers, a freshman quarterback, just been outstanding.
Yeah, he has. And JT Daniels, speaking to him with Georgia, it's been fun to watch Georgia, but their running game, I mean, it's hard to think of Georgia not having a power running game, but ever since he came on, it's been a different team. But what is Georgia? Is do you think that's what Georgia's missing? I mean, the receiving core this year wasn't great. If they could run, they didn't have the balance that they're looking for. And Todd Monken is in his first year as offensive coordinator at Georgia. What kind of a grade would you give him?
Well, considering what he had to deal with, I'd give him a B. They ended up starting the first 4 games with a guy that they didn't expect to get off the scout squad as scout team, and then they actually encouraged him to go somewhere else because he just wasn't going to be able to play at Georgia. And then circumstances kind of developed to where you had the Newman ouster there, where he just decided I think that he just couldn't grasp the offense. I mean, it had been rumored there for the better part of the summer that he was not able to really grasp what they were trying to do. He wasn't comfortable with the Monken offense at all, and so that left Mathis, who it turned out he was the starter at Arkansas in the opener, and he just didn't have the passing skills to be able to play at this level. And so they really benched him. And then, of course, he entered the transfer portal 2 or 3 weeks ago. And then Carson Beck, who was a true freshman from Jacksonville, who just kind of got lost in the shuffle. And then Daniels, who the doctors, were just skeptical of clearing for, probably at least 3 weeks later than was expected. So it was just kind of a mess as far as their quarterback situation was concerned. Then when they finally pulled the trigger on Daniels, he had the big game against Mississippi State, and then he's kind of he's been on a nice roll since.
Yeah, it has been fun to watch. And JT Daniels has got a lot of playing time left. And, I wonder how many players, I wonder at, looking forward, just out of curiosity, how many of the guys that we think like, okay, your Georgia quarterback situation, Justin Fields didn't want to stick around after his freshman year. He was gone. They were caught this year with really no quarterback. They had to go to Stetson Bennett IV, who was a 5th team guy. DeJuan Mathis, like you said, he wasn't good enough. I don't know how they recruited him and, didn't evaluate him or whatever. But I'm just looking at Georgia. It just seems like that's a problem that they have. They're losing, a couple of games a year because, this year they didn't have the receivers, and then they didn't have a quarterback. They had a running game. And then finally, by the time they got to a really good quarterback, they had a running game. And then finally, by the time they got to a really good quarterback, they had a running game. And then finally, by the time they got to a really good quarterback, they had a running game. And then finally, by the time they got to a really good quarterback, they had a running game. And then finally, by the time they got to a really good quarterback, they had a running game. And then finally, by the time they got to a really good quarterback, they had a running game. And then finally, by the time they got to a really good quarterback, they had a running game. And then finally, by the time they got to a really good quarterback, they had a running game. And then finally, by the time they got to a really good quarterback, they had a running game. And then finally, by the time they got to a really good quarterback, they had a running game. And then finally, by the time they got to a really good quarterback, they had a running game. And then finally, by the time they got to a really good quarterback, they had a running game. And then finally, by the time they got to a really good quarterback, they had a running game. And then finally, by the time they got to a really good quarterback, they had a running game. And then finally against Mississippi State, JT Daniels throws for over 400 yards, but they only run for 8 yards. And after 5 years, and you compare the record of Kirby Smart, and I know it's a shorter season this year, but Kirby Smart to Mark Richt, he's won one fewer game. And in the first 5 years, Mark Richt won 2 SEC championships. And Kirby did play for one national championship, but he didn't win it. But, what is Georgia? Has it been an upgrade from Mark Richt to get Kirby Smart based on the first 5 years, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think so. Just because of the quality of players they've recruited and how many. They've been in the top 5 virtually every year, and the talent level you can't argue with. But they won the East, every year until his first year they didn't, but then they won. They won it in 17, 18, 19, and then they did win the SEC championship, of course, in 18, and then they, came so close to winning the national championship. They had the big Rose Bowl win in the semifinals in 18 against Oklahoma. So they thought they had Bama beaten in the SEC championship game 2 years ago, and it was again just a dramatic ending where Jalen Hurts came in after Tua had gotten injured. But I think the fact that Georgia has been so close, really still excites their fan base, because they know he's developed a track record of bringing in elite talent, and that they're always going to have the players that are going to allow them to compete at that level. So I think their fan base, they got very high expectations, very demanding, but I definitely think they're happy with the direction they're going. Whereas with Mark Richt, the first 4 years were kind of I would say plateau. They won the SEC championship in 2000 and 2005, and then they lost the epic SEC championship game in 2012 to Alabama. And then from that point on, it kind of just went downhill.
Yeah, but I agree with you. I think Kirby Smart is an upgrade from Mark Richt. Look at the blue chip talent index that, again, Alabama is number 1 in the country at 83%. It's obvious when you see Alabama play. They just have more players than anybody. 83% of their players are 4 or 5-star rated players on their 4-year roster. Georgia, it's 82%. But you saw this year struggles at quarterback in both games against Alabama and Florida. Games were fairly close for a half or so. And then, bam, second half, no way. Georgia unable to compete. But you got to think, Georgia recruiting, they're loaded on the offensive line, defensive line, not any superstars up there, but they have depth, which is critical. Athletes at every position. And I agree. I think Kirby is an upgrade, and they'll get their national championship soon. I think it's coming. And JT Daniels continues to progress the way he is. I think that the sky's the limit for him. But you got to think about other quarterbacks that they brought in. They brought in other 5 stars, and Kirby just goes out there and gets every stud in the state. If he wants them, looks like he's going to get them. And
they've got a 5-star that's going to be coming in, Brock Vandegrift, that thinks JT Daniels or no JT Daniels, he's going to get some playing time. As a true freshman. That's how good they think he is. So, I mean, each year is just a different situation, and then you're going to have the matter of trying to blend in, the incoming freshmen, be it transfers because of the portal that's now in effect, which players can transfer to another school and be eligible immediately.
Yeah.
And then blending that in with the incoming freshmen, and then the younger players who are good enough to play at this level, but have been sitting behind experienced players that have been starters multiple years. So you got to find a formula, the coaching staffs do, of trying to blend all those factors in together and develop a chemistry of a successful team. Find out who your best players are at every position, and then also identify guys that even though they're not starting, they're good enough to play at a lot of other schools, and find a way to get them playing time also, so that their development isn't hindered. So it's going to be really, really interesting on how the coaches approach next season compared to this season, because you just had out of nowhere an abrupt stop to the normal preparation process from early spring until preseason camp. It's just it's nothing we've ever seen before, and we'll see how they handle the different circumstances that are going to be in place next year, as far as developing a program that's competitive uh, and is in a position to compete for championships.
Yeah, it has been a really fun season to watch. All right, a couple of commercials real quick here before we go to a commercial break. Then we're going to be joined after we come out of the break by Jake Crane, host of the J-Boy podcast, and also Rodney Orr of Tyler Insider is going to be on here with us. And let me say a message here first about the Dorian Agency. Tom Dorian, he is my wife and I, he's our insurance agent. Known Tom for 42 years. A Dorian Agency, if you need insurance, and we all do, may not want to hear about it, but you need it. Life insurance, property and casualty, all your insurance needs. Go have the conversation that you need to have with Tom Dorian. He's easy to talk to. It's like talking to a friend. Even if you just met him, he'll put you at ease. He'll listen. If he can help you, great. If not, he'll say, hey, you're fine. We don't need to do anything. You're good to go. But they've also got something unique. If you're like most Americans, you might go years between making a claim on your insurance, whether it's property and casualty, homeowners, car insurance, whatever. And if that's the case, they have a program that allows you to receive up to 25% return of premium. So look, have that conversation, make that phone call to Tom Dorian of the Dorian Agency, 6240 Poplar Avenue in East Memphis. Call him 901-328-5858. Also, Red River Ford Toyota. They're not open today. It's Sunday, but Christmas will be here Friday. Merry Christmas, everybody. December 25th will be here before you know it. Justin Wynn, who's on here with us, calling in on Fridays and Saturdays, yesterday made a big point to let everyone know. Inventory. They've got inventory. That's what they've been trying to get at Red River Ford Toyota in Wynn, Arkansas. They've got it. I'm telling you right now, it's an easy trip if you live in Memphis. John Dobbs Jr. is part of the ownership group of Red River Auto Group. The Dobbs family has been in the car and truck business in the Memphis and the Mid-South area for a long time. It's an easy trip. Get off at the Forest City exit. Go north 11 miles. You'll be in Wynn. You'll see Red River Ford. If you're going back and forth from Heber Springs on 64, it's a half mile south of Highway 64 in Wynn by the Walmart. Go south and you'll see it on the right. Easy to find. Justin Wynn, the general manager, Rusty Howard, the sales manager, Nate and all the salesmen, the service department, everybody there is committed to one goal, taking care of their customers and finding you what you need. And it's easy to do. You can get on the website, Red River Ford Toyota. It's on our website, sidelines.live, and start filling out a lot of the information for your loan, for your credit, for everything like that. So when you go in there, it's populated. They've already got it. They can meet with you, and it saves a lot of time. It's in a very efficient process. Justin Wynn and the folks at Red River Ford Toyota, they've got inventory. They'll be open bright and early Monday morning. They'll be there till 7 o'clock tomorrow night, or like they say, until the last sale is done. Check them out, Red River Ford Toyota in Wynn, Arkansas. Let's take a commercial break. We'll be right back with more. We'll be with you till 5 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. on the East Coast. And we're going to be talking about that Auburn coaching search, what's going on up in Knoxville. Tennessee ended up 3-7. Whole lot to talk about. We'll be right back. Hey, Jimmy.
Hey.
Yeah, hold on 1 second. Okay, let me try to fix something. God, that thing's killing my ear. Oh, man. I wonder why it's not doing in stereo. Weird. Okay, hold on 1 second. Have you checked all these levels on them? Something's not plugged in right. Let's see. Jimmy, does it sound okay to you?
Yeah, sounds okay.
Okay. Yeah, it's weird. I'm just trying to figure out. Okay. It's just strange why I can't get. I don't hear both. Huh. Okay. Yeah.
Are you going to switch to your phone?
Yeah. Here's Rodney right now. I'm gonna switch to my phone at 4. Okay. Hey, Rodney. We're on a commercial break. I'm gonna bring you in here with Jimmy. Okay.
Okay, buddy.
All right. Oh, whoop. Hey, okay. Use passcode. What is it? Okay. Hey, I'm sorry about that. No, I let my phone. We've been out hunting today, and I had my phone with me. I guess it just got cold. I normally make sure that thing's always charged. So, Jimmy, you there?
Yep.
Rodney, you there?
I'm here, buddy.
Okay. Sorry. Okay, but I just got on Audrey's phone. I'll switch to mine. I guess I can in the second half, but I just didn't want the thing to run out while we were doing it. That happened one time. About a month ago, we were on the computer. We thought it was charged up, and the last few minutes, we went into like cyberspace. I don't know where we were. Okay, how much longer? Okay. Hey, Rodney, what'd you think about that game last night?
Jeez, I thought it was never going to end. Is what I thought.
That was
nerve-wracking.
God. I mean,
it was just like. How many, Josh Jobe lining up offsides at the goal line, on the big play. Malachi Moore has a chance to recover a fumble, and 10 Alabama players around it, and one Florida guy comes up with it, and or took it away from Malachi, actually.
Yeah,
it just seemed like
are you talking about the one at the 10-yard line?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it looked like an Alabama player had his back was on top of the ball, and
it was Malachi.
Yeah. Did the Florida player actually recover it?
Well, Malachi got up under his arm, and then he from him at the bottom of the pile. You got to hold on to that ball, buddy.
Okay.
Oh, no.
10 seconds, guys. All right.
Yeah, 4 plays later, they're in the end zone.
Okay.
This isn't here trustful.
Okay, Rob Brown here with you on the Sunday afternoon wrap-up show, Sidelines.live. We'll be with you till 5 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. on the eastern side of the Chattahoochee and the Caney Fork River. Hey, we got Jimmy Hodge up in Chicago, national college football contributor. Jake Crane has just come on with us from down in Tupelo, host of the J-Boy podcast. And one of our favorites, Rodney Orr of Tider Insider in Tuscaloosa. And hey, let's get started again where Jimmy and I have been talking about the game last night, the playoff situation, the transfer portal, what that might look like. But Rodney, again, let's get your thoughts on what the takeaway was from Alabama's win, another SEC championship win over Florida. And now the next stop is round 1 of the playoff.
Yeah, well, it was what an exciting game that we saw. It was incredible, the offensive performance. And, you look at that game, and I guess if you start early on, what about that hit John Mechie put on Trey Dean? That may have actually been the play of the game. If you look at it, it was certainly one of the plays of the game. And, after the interception and laying him out and fumble and Devontae recovering. And then I think it was the next play, Mac found Devontae for a touchdown. But, it was an incredible game. Obviously all of the guys that are the Heisman candidates lived up to expectations. And then what about Najee Harris? What an incredible performance he had. as a receiver and as a runner, just, he was a workhorse, 31 carries. I think he had 178, a couple of touchdowns rushing. Then, he had the 3 touchdowns receiving. So the big 3 for Alabama certainly came through. And then if you're on the Florida side, you watch them. Kyle Trask was just outstanding. Obviously Kyle Pitts is indefensible. And then Kadarius Toney, he is just a tremendous player and had a big game. And Trevon Grimes. And so there was a lot of skill that I think showed out on that field last night.
There's no question there was. Najee Harris is a beast. I mean, he reminds you of Marshawn Lynch with better speed. There's just the way he's so hard to take down. Alabama has so many weapons that they can hit you with. And you saw Florida the week before when Kyle Pitts did not play against LSU. They were a different team, and they don't have a great running game. So it really hurts when they don't have Kyle Pitts in. He's a 6'8" guy that can jump. He can run. And he'll be a top 10 draft pick if I had to guess. Jake Crane, you watched that game on the Color TV on the Zenith Trinitron last night. And what was your takeaway from Alabama 52, Florida 46?
You knew it was going to be high scoring. You can see how different Florida is with Kyle Pitts in the game because at any point in the game you can throw him the ball even against Alabama, and he's a problem. But they just didn't have enough. And at the end, you talk about that play by Michie. It's funny, offensive guys, especially receivers, always complain during practice when they got to go over and do tackling circuit with the defensive guys, just in case that were to happen. But if you watch that tackle by Michie, that wasn't an accident. He did that on purpose. That's something they've worked, like I talked about, whether it's the tackling circuit before practice with the receivers working on knocking the ball out, whether it's turnover circuit. But watching the whole game, I thought Florida fought hard. I thought Trask ran the ball really hard. I know he's probably really beat up this morning. They really leaned on him in the run game, especially in the red zone, which is what you got to do against Bama. But look, Alabama's the best team in college football. They won that game. I know the score looked pretty close, and it was a good game. But Alabama, it always felt like Alabama was going to win that game.
Yeah, never was in doubt. It's just that Florida did not want to quit. Jimmy Hodge, there have been a lot of Florida-Alabama matchups in the SEC championship. Smaller crowd than I've ever seen before. But is Dan Mullen going to be able to get Florida a national championship with Todd Grantham as his defensive coordinator?
Well, I don't know. I must say this, as strange as it sounded at halftime when Alabama scored touchdowns on all 5 offensive possessions in the first half. I'm telling you, Florida made them earn every inch. I mean, lots of times the coverage was really good, and either it was a great throw or Bama would come up with a great play call. But I think Florida defensively in the first half, they did everything imaginable that you could do, and Alabama's execution was just it was just top notch, and also they made a couple of mistakes. They jumped off sides, which helped Alabama, but of course, a great team's going to take advantage of that. And then, of course, the interception that could have been really the difference in the game, as Rodney mentioned, because that really was the throw to Forstall was slightly behind him, and Forstall had to reach back a little bit. And that's why he couldn't get a really strong grip on it, because Dean came in there and just made a sensational play. But Mechie's from Canada, and I'm sure he grew up playing hockey. And that looked like a hockey check, because he just killed Dean, knocked the ball loose. And again, it was a huge play in the game. There's no question about it. But I thought Mullen made a mistake on Florida's final possession of the first half, where they snapped the ball with 16 seconds left on the play clock. And the way Alabama was moving the ball, you wanted to try to take up as much time in the first half as you could. Of course, you can't be picky about when you score, but if they would have run that play clock down another 15 seconds, I don't know that Alabama would have scored a touchdown at the end of the half. They may have had to settle for a field goal, but I thought that was a big sequence. And then I thought on Florida's last touchdown, they had 3 timeouts left and they used 2 of them. The second one before the 2-point conversion, which I just didn't understand. You would think they would have a 2-point conversion play ready, and because of that, they just had 1 timeout left, and Scott came through with a great punt, so Florida had to start from their 11 with 25 seconds left, I guess. Had they had a minute left, a minute 6 left instead of 26 seconds left, I don't know if Bama could have stopped them, because they just, in the second half, they just had no answer for just the way that Pitts, Trask, and Tony, were playing. They were playing with a tremendous level of confidence. And I got to tell you this, too. I mean, after that loss last week, you can't give Dan Mullen enough credit for the way he had this team prepared and with the game plan offensively. And they never got discouraged. They just would not go away. And I mean, it's a real credit, I think, to just their program, their players, their coaching staff. It was just a tremendous game.
Yeah, and there's no question with Dan Mullen as a head coach, what he does with quarterbacks, Florida's offense will always be at or near the elite level. But defensively, I'm not sure if he and Todd Grantham worked together all that well. But last night, you look at the points, neither defense was playing their best game. But hey, it's Alabama now, SEC champion. Guys, let's talk real quick, while we got you on here, Rodney. The rest of the SEC, A&M was really hopeful, and their fan base was, of getting into the playoffs. And they finished up 9-1, go on the road, get a win at Tennessee. It was probably not as easy as they would have liked. And we figured that Tennessee would put up a fight. What's the takeaway, Rodney, from what you've seen? I know you cover Alabama with Tighter Insider like nobody else, but you see Alabama play every game and you watch a lot of college football. But are you, after 3 years, are you convinced Jimbo Fisher is going to turn A&M into one of the better programs in the SEC, which will make them one of the top programs in America?
Yeah, I think certainly. I mean, he's recruiting extremely well. He's obviously got a great recruiting base. He's had another good recruiting year. They're recruiting a lot of extremely talented defensive linemen, defensive players. I mean, they got Shamar Turner in this class, just signed him on Wednesday, who I think may be the best defensive lineman I saw. Certainly one of the best high school defensive linemen I've seen this year. So they're doing really well in recruiting, and I think he's already got them right there. And to be honest with you, I think they're one of the 4 best teams probably this year. I don't want to say they got, kind of screwed or whatever, but, I do think I understand they're being upset about, being left out. Certainly I can understand that, but I really expected Ohio State to jump to 3. Actually it even posted that this morning on Tighter Insider that, they would jump to 3, and I felt like Notre Dame would be in, because when you looked at those resumes and you saw the strength of record, I think Notre Dame's strength of record was actually stronger than A&M's, but now the strength of schedule, I think barely favored A&M. And then when it came down to those top 25 wins, Notre Dame was 2-1. And their only loss, obviously, was to the school that they had already beaten, Clemson. And then A&M was 1-1. They obviously lost to Alabama and then beat Florida. So I just really felt when I saw those graphics that, if it's a coin flip, you guys know who's going to win that one every time. It's going to be Notre Dame.
Oh, yeah. They've just got that brand. And again, Jimmy alluded to this earlier in the show today. So many of the people on the committee are older, and they've grown up in the time when Notre Dame was one of the best brands out there. But it's certainly the best team that Brian Kelly has had since he's been at Notre Dame. And I'm going to throw this one at you, Jake, and then Jimmy. Would you agree with that, Jake? And does Notre Dame have a chance? Obviously, they have a chance that they're going to play the game. But what kind of a chance do you give Notre Dame against Alabama?
No, they ain't got a chance. They got about as much a chance as Manti Te'o finding his ex-girlfriend when he was at Notre Dame.
Yeah.
The one who didn't exist. Look, it's amazing, first off, how much different Clemson looks when they have Skalski back. See, everybody talked about Trevor
That's
Lawrence
the key.
not playing in the game
Yeah.
against Notre
Yeah.
Dame the first time. Well, people didn't realize Notre Dame was missing two quarterbacks. Their quarterback, Trevor Lawrence, and their quarterback on defense. Skalski makes that thing go.
Yep.
And when I look at Notre Dame, you're not going to be able to stop Alabama. The main reason is because nobody can stop Alabama. Offensively, Ian Book wasn't able to run around and witch his way to a win. I thought Indy caught a lot of breaks that first game against Clemson, but they did win the game. I don't see them being able to compete with Alabama. Now, I will say this. Losing Landon Dickerson is a big deal for Alabama, not only because he's a really good player and a good leader, but he also plays center. And snapping and stepping, especially in big games, is not as easy as you think. That's why Alabama's recruited so well. I know they got great depth, but if there's any kind of, slice in the armor, I guess you could say it's that. But look, Notre Dame's running into an absolute freight train. I mean, they may score, a couple points, get a few big plays. I like Meyer, the true freshman they have at tight end. I think he's an NFL guy waiting to happen. But I don't think they have enough weapons to compete with Alabama. I think it's going to be ugly. I think both the games are going to be ugly. And we get Alabama and Clemson again. It's like, what did Bill Murray say? Hey, it's Groundhog's Day again. So that's the way I feel.
Yeah, and I'm not going to disagree with you and even though this is the best Notre Dame team that Brian Kelly's had, this is probably, in my opinion, the best offense I've seen Nick Saban and Alabama have. Steve Sarkisian in his second year at Alabama, it's just amazing to me. Last year you had Tua, he got injured in the Mississippi State game. Mac Jones comes in and lights it up in the last few games of the season. And this year, if Mac Jones, Rodney, Jimmy, Jake, everybody listening, if he doesn't win the Heisman, it'll be a shock to me. Alabama, again, they're just so loaded. The question is Nick Saban the best coach of all time? Sure he is. Anybody that can manage that kind of talent and have those guys play together as a team and keep those guys together deserves every bit of credit that he gets. Jimmy Hodge, your thoughts on this Notre Dame-Alabama matchup?
Yeah, I think Notre Dame's just completely overmatched. I mean, this Alabama offense is an absolute juggernaut, and you always judge players by how well they play in big games. And even though Alabama was going to be in the playoff and probably still be the number one seed if they had lost last night, you could just see the determination in this team when they were challenged that they want to be remembered as a particularly elite group in Alabama history, and that is a team that not only won the national championship, but the first team and maybe the only team ever to win 11 SEC games in a season, and then on top of that be Saban's second undefeated team in his coaching career. I think they have all those goals there, and they did not want an undefeated season slip away from them. And again, just look at these numbers. Matt Jones, 33 for 43, 418 yards passing, five touchdowns. Najee Harris, 31 carries, 178 yards. How many TDs?
Five.
Five. Yeah, that's right.
3 receiving and 2 rushing.
Right. Yeah, I was thinking the 2 TDs were rushing only. And he had 5 overall and made a couple of tremendous moves. The spin move on the touchdown receptions.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just tremendous athletic ability. And then you had Deontay Smith, 15 receptions, 184 yards. And I think really, and I know I'm veering off just a little bit when you talk about this Heisman conversation, with a lot of the national media writers, Smitty had jumped ahead in their mind and to the number one spot for the Heisman race. And I think he would have won it had he was about 2 inches from breaking away and scoring on an 80-yard punt return. I think if he would have been able to pull that off along with the stats I just mentioned, I think he would have won it last night. But I think Matt's going to win it though with the game he had.
Yeah.
Have you guys seen the latest Vegas odds on that? Whatever it's worth.
I have not.
Yeah, they've got Smitty at minus 170, and I think Mac is plus 170, and then I can't remember. I guess Lawrence is next, or Trask. I can't remember, but right now they've got Smitty as the favorite. So that was this morning. So it's going to be interesting. I don't know what that means. You guys probably follow that a lot more closely and know better than I do, but I found that interesting this morning.
Well, Mac Jones is the best player. Well, that's hard to say, but I mean, he is. He's the best player on the best team in America. And every week he makes a difference. He's not a game manager. He's an impact player. And he could go out there and fall on his face, but he doesn't. I mean, Kyle Trask was a heck of a player, but
can you believe that his QBR is higher than Joe Burrow's last year? I mean, think about that. Think about the season that Joe Burrow had, and his QBR. I think Mac's QBR is the highest in history. Jimmy, you may know, or Jay, but I think that's where it stands right now, which is pretty amazing. And to be honest with you, given here I cover Alabama, I almost feel guilty, trying to side with one over the other when it comes to Mac and Devontae Smith. I mean, here's the thing: you'd feel great for. Hey, here's the thing, Rob. You'd feel great for one of them winning it.
Yeah.
But the thing about it is, I think you'd just feel horrible for the one that didn't win it.
Yeah.
Because you're like, it's an odd position to be in.
It really is. Rodney, I know you've got to go, but if you can hang on as long with us as you can. Got a question for you, Jake. In my phone, I was out duck hunting this morning over in Brinkley, Arkansas. My phone was on vibrate, but man, lots of vibrations. Everybody that I know that follows Auburn and people that don't, what's Auburn going to do? I know Steve Sarkisian is supposed to have an interview today with Auburn. It's been 8 days now. You would have thought Auburn had somebody in mind already lined up before, you get rid of the guy you've got. 3 days before the early signing period. That wasn't the case. The fire department is on the scene in Auburn. Is this now a 4 or 5 alarm fire?
Well, with some information that I just got, I'm going to have to say I think Steve Sarkisian is the leader right now. The interview is scheduled for today. They had a good showing last night. He's been a guy, and there's a lot of obviously questions about, I guess the fit culturally and all that stuff, and I understand that. But I know he had an interview today. I know they're really high on him. The question to me is when you're going to make your announcement. Will it be, tomorrow? Will they stretch this thing out, another week? But I think right now Sarkisian's the leader in the clubhouse. I think Steele's always there, but just the backlash, I think it's made it impossible to hire him. You're going to lose. 95% of the fan base is spoken, and a lot of them are season ticket holders, and nothing speaks like that attendance number. So another fact in that end, Billy Napier's the name. I would put him second. I would say right now Sarkisian first, Billy Napier second. And if you're able to get a guy like Sarkisian, I'm in the camp of I think he'd be a good hire. I think he's got the blueprint. It's the second go around. He understands what he's got, understands where he has to recruit. I believe he was the recruiting coordinator as well at Alabama for a year. So I think right now I'd say Sark's the leader. And if that was the hire, I think that's definitely an upgrade from where they were. If I could pick one out of a hat, I'd love to have Mario Cristobal, but I think that train's all but sailed. So if they're able to get Sarkisian, I think you turn a dumpster fire into maybe a nice little Zen garden after it's all burned down and everything. And but if it starts getting down the list and you start hearing names like Neil Brown and stuff like that, you might as well call the SWAT team because you're going to need an investigation after the fire gets put out.
That's right. Hey, I want to throw this one to Rodney real quick because I know, Rodney, you got to go. And Jake, both of y'all here in the next few minutes. But Rodney, Nick Saban, he's from West Virginia, Monongah, West Virginia, small town. Jimbo Fisher is from a small town in West Virginia. Were there questions and were people wondering if Nick Saban was going to be a culturally going to fit at Alabama? I mean, there were people that wondered when he came to LSU, was that a good fit culturally? All I can say is winning is a great cultural fit anywhere.
Yeah, no question about that. I mean, Jake mentioned Sark and the fit or whatever. As far as that goes, I don't think that's something. I don't know about all the buyout and all of those things that he's demanding financially, supposedly, if he were to take the job. There's been some discussion about possibly he wouldn't, Auburn wouldn't be open to some of that stuff. I don't know. Again, we'll see how it all plays out. And I think that's an interesting piece of information there from Jake. Something really to watch is Sarkisian. He's done a fantastic job here. There's no question about that as the offensive coordinator. And so I think that's something that's going to be interesting to see how it unfolds. And I know that Kevin Steele obviously has had a lot of support too. From some groups. Again, I don't know where it stands. Jake knows that a lot better than I do, but I think Napier would be a great choice as well. I think he's done a fantastic job at Louisiana. I think he's done a fantastic job down there.
Yeah, you've got to get somebody that's going to be willing to recruit and work, and then be able to put a staff together. And
just not Kevin Steele. How about that? I just anybody but Kevin Steele. I mean, look, I got a neighbor that's young and energetic. He do a great job. Just anybody but Kevin Steele at this point with everything that's gone on. But I think Sarkisian would be a guy that would kind of give you some juice. Auburn needs some good news, to be honest with you, and good news not in the form of we get to play Northwestern again in the Citrus Bowl and get to watch them overachieve for 4 quarters again. I can't wait to watch that.
Yeah, but in 5 overtimes. I mean, Auburn, Gus would always say that we're going down there to get butter. Gus needs to come up with his own kind of, Lando Lakes, forget them. Gus Malzahn, we're going to get butter. We're going to get butter.
Yeah.
And we're going to get butter.
Boom butter brought to you by Gus.
Yeah, boom butter brought to you by Gus. We're going to get butter. Hey, Rodney Orr, listen, I know you got a birthday party you got to go to, and I want to say thank you so much for taking part of your Sunday afternoon to join us. It's always great having you on. Tell people how they can follow you on Tider Insider. And then Jake Crane, I know you've got to go do another interview, and great numbers on the J-Boy podcast, which can also be found on the sidelines.live website. So thank you so much. But Rodney, tell people, because a lot to read about right now. You're going into the playoffs again.
Right. Yeah. TiderInsider.com. It's only $48 a year. You can get instant access with your credit card if you prefer. There is an address there to send a check and gives you all our premium information, but also our All Sports Forum, our community there on TiderInsider.com. It's I'm just telling you, it's been a wild last several days because of the signing period, the early signing period, and then now with the game yesterday and the playoffs and all that stuff. So a lot of things going on there, Rob, at TiderInsider.com.
And you had to be really pleased with the recruiting class. You've got a lot on the early signing class.
Great class.
Yeah. I mean, offensive line, maybe the best in school history.
Great group of receivers. Pulled off a really late snatch from LSU and JoJo Earl, who may be the second I don't want to say he's the second coming of Waddle, but he's certainly in that kind of mold out of Aledo, Texas. So, yeah, it was a great finish for Alabama in recruiting.
And one last thing, that this tiny town of Amite, Louisiana, guys, has produced 2 of the best players in college football. Travis Etienne, running back at Clemson, Devontae Smith, wide receiver, who was committed to Georgia but ended up signing, obviously, with Alabama. Both of them from Amite, Louisiana. LSU, I bet you would love to have either one of them. Instead, LSU will watch them both play in the playoffs. Rodney Orr, thank you so much for being with us. Jake Crane, if you've got to bounce, I know you've got another interview coming up. Go, but if not, stay on with us. Jimmy Hodge up in Chicago, National College Football contributor. We're going to be right back. And around 4:15, 4:20, we're going to have a friend of the show who's Chef Roger Watson to talk about doing a Christmas turkey and some good Christmas recipes. Chef Roger, you're going to love this guy. 8 years. He was 17 years old, grew up in Manchester, England, got on a train with $50 or whatever the British, currency, whatever that's worth for them. And went to London on his own when he was 17, got a job with this guy that screamed and yelled at him a lot. Turned out a month later, he offered him a full-time job. It was Gordon Ramsay. 8 years he learned from that man. He's the best chef in the world, Chef Roger Watson. We call him the Rebel Chef. He's a huge Ole Miss fan, young guy in his early 30s. But, man, y'all hang on. We're going to be right back. Again, Jake Crane, thank you so much, host of the J-Boy Cast podcast, and Rodney Ortider, Insider, and Jimmy Hodge. We're going to be right back. One more hour to go on the Sunday wrap-up show, Sidelines.live. Okay. Hey, Jimmy. Yeah, that was fun. Yeah, Chef Roger is going to be on here, man. We love. he's up in Indianapolis. We're going to get him to put this recipe on. He is hilarious. He's the best chef on the planet. Oh, man, I didn't realize. Okay. I texted Jimmy. Jimmy, you'll love it. I texted Billy Roberts and Frank Duffy about being on the show, and Frank, of course, sends he's at the Saints game on the field or whatever, and Billy's like, "Sure, it's not like the Falcons are a distraction." I love it. All right, okay, call Audrey's line. Okay, just a second. Okay, hold on. And I'm trying not to laugh. Damn. Okay. Okay.
I don't think you have to do 2 commercials for the car stuff.
Yeah. And I'll do George and Tom in the second hour. I was so flat when we started. I hadn't eaten enough, man. God, these tamales are bringing me back to life. Oh, yeah. Okay. Hold on 1 second, Jimmy. Okay. Go. We have order.
Did you give him the number?
Yep.
Marty?
Yeah. 1 second. Oh, yeah. Hold on a second. Whoops. Hold on 1 second, Jimmy. I'm on Audrey's line today because I let my battery get down. So I'm trying to get this coordinated. Okay. Whoops. Line. Just 1 second. Dash 606-1929. All right. Okay. Man, Jimmy, my phone has been blowing up. Just people. It's like, oh my. Okay.
Okay, Rob, we got like 30 seconds.
Okay. All right.
So who's making the call on this? The board or the?
The big money guys. I was saying.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. Okay.
Yeah.
Turn on your microphone.
Okay. All right.
Wait, listening.
Ready?
I will do this one.
Okay. There's someone I'm trying to text. Okay.
Don't talk.
Okay, Rob Brown back here with you. Another hour to go on the Sunday afternoon, www.sidelines.live. Sunday afternoon wrap-up show. Having fun, man. I got the fire going over here at the fire going here at the Cherry Farm here in Parkin, Arkansas. We hunted over around Brinkley and Keyville, Arkansas this morning, Jimmy. Man, I went looking for a crippled speck out there with my dog. I'll tell you what, that's a workout, man. It is great exercise to put on neoprene waders with all your gear and go through gumbo mud in a flooded rice field in Arkansas. It's something everyone should experience at least once in their life, and it's that and getting an epidural. I can imagine that's not a lot of fun. But hey, we've also got Billy Roberts has just joined us from over in Atlanta, and Billy, my roommate from college, LaGrange, Georgia, the pride of the LaGrange. What the Grangers, plow them up, Grangers was y'all's cheer, Billy. But Billy knows, and I texted Billy Roberts and Frank Duffy, Mr. LSU Tiger. They're both over in Atlanta, and of course Frank is in New Orleans at the Saints game. Everybody, he sends me a picture, from the game, all excited. And Billy said, "Absolutely, sure. It's not like the Falcons are a distraction." So, I just want to watch paint dry. But we just
exactly right.
We just had Rodney Orr from Tider Insider on. Great as always. And Jake Crane, host of the J-Boy podcast. Again, you can go to the sidelines.live website, find the J-Boy podcast, as well as the Mitch Davis Show podcast on the sidelines.live website. And we're going to have the Rebel Chef, Roger Watson. Chef Roger be calling us up here about 4:20 for a little segment. He's a big Ole Miss fan, but we're going to talk a little bit about food, some great recipes, doing a turkey and what all for Christmas. Billy, let's get your thoughts. Obviously in Atlanta, last night Alabama gets another SEC championship. Nobody was surprised, but I will give my son Wilson credit. He said, "Take Florida and the points. This game's going to be 7 to 10 points." We're going to have to get Wilson on here, give him a nickname, though, if he's going to be, an odds guy, Jimmy and Billy. Maybe we'll call him Vinny the Cutthroat, Jimmy the Weasel, Billy the Rat,
Well, he's going to have to give away his lock of the week and then charge for a 5-game parlay.
Yeah, I mean, y'all give me some good names for the odds maker guy. Jimmy, what would be a good one for a guy from Chicago? We caught him.
Oh, to me? I guess Jerome, I don't know, maybe Harry the Hammer.
Yeah, there you go, Harry the Hammer. I always love it when you get those guys on there. But Billy Roberts, Jake Crane in the first hour made some great points about the Auburn coaching search. We know that Steve Sarkisian, great job he's done in his 2 years at Alabama as offensive coordinator, developing quarterbacks. Their offense, they hit you from every angle. And Jimmy, as a longtime Alabama fan, and you may want to give Gus Malzahn credit. He forced Alabama to change, but they're way better than anything that Gus was doing. And Steve Sarkisian, it would be an interesting fit. Would you like to see Steve Sarkisian at Auburn, Billy, and then Billy Napier, who's, I think, the guy who's done the most with the least of any of Auburn's coaching candidates? He won 11 games last year, and he's got 9 wins this year at Louisiana Lafayette. An impressive guy, played at Furman from South Carolina. He's coached with Dabo at Clemson. He's coached with Nick Saban at Alabama. He's got a great resume. Dad's a high school coach. He's a worker. Can he put together the right staff? But go in order. Sarkisian first, Billy Napier second, or the guy you want the most?
Well, as a reluctant Falcons fan, I was horrified when Dan Quinn's name popped up on as an Auburn potential candidate. So I'm glad that sank like a rock.
Yeah, that
would have been a double nightmare for a guy who's an Auburn and a Falcon fan.
That's right. Well, it'd be like Kurt Roper being hired again, the Grim Reaper, to coach the offense. Will Muschamp has this fascination with the guy. Why?
Yeah, well, I hear. So, here's after being a longtime Auburn observer, and I believe this to my core, that is not a job for a relatively inexperienced head coach, even if he's successful. And Malzahn, I think, is the latest chapter in that story. I mean, yeah, he was a head coach for a year, but that's it, and he was familiar with the Auburn program. So he came in with advantages by knowing who the politics and the players are, knew what that was about. So he didn't come in, and got overwhelmed or blindsided by the political aspect of that job. But Auburn is too big a job. The expectations are too high for somebody to come in as the hot assistant or a hot young assistant or a hot young head coach. That's just my feeling. So for that reason, I would disqualify Napier. Sarkisian has been a head coach before at big time programs. And also has got the pro pedigree with the Falcons. So he is a better fit for what the Tigers need out of a coach. But is he going to recruit enough? I don't know. Or maybe he's an amazing recruiter. He certainly can develop quarterbacks. We've seen that. There's no doubt that when he gets talent, he knows what to do with it, and he's a very, very solid play caller. But I don't know if he's going to get out there and drive the 2-lane roads to find the hot 17-year-old, recruit, even if he is a 5-star. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't know, if he's an amazing recruit or not. So that's why Cristobal, doubling down with Oregon and getting an extension, that was a disappointment because he does have a reputation as a really aggressive recruiter, which I think is job number one at Auburn. So I would say Auburn needs an amazing recruiter with big time head coaching experience and ideally a sprinkling of pro experience. That would be the 3 boxes that I would say are a must for the next Auburn coach. That's me looking back over, 40 plus years of watching them, go have their ups and downs, but the Dyes and the Tubervilles were head coaches elsewhere and had success elsewhere and were not, young guys when they took that job. And so I think, I would argue that's probably been the 2 guys that have had sustained success at Auburn. If anybody doubts me on that, I'd love to hear the counterpoint.
Yeah, and I think that you're talking Dan Quinn. Coaches, Jimmy, and I want you to pick up on this one. When they come from the NFL, they typically do not want to start Snapchatting and Instagramming and Facebook and all that stuff with 16, 17-year-old kids all night, every night. That's not what they want to do. And now Steve Sarkisian, and Jimmy, you speak for this. The Alabama program really well. There's no way Sark would be on the staff with Nick Saban if he didn't fit the bill of being a great coach, developer of talent, and recruiter. Because the big 4 that you look for in a head coach are, can he recruit? Can he develop talent? Okay. And can he manage everybody around him? And another one is, can he maintain success? Bobby Bowden warned his son, Terry, don't let the success come too early because you may not know how to keep it going. So your thoughts on that, Jimmy, and what comments that Billy made, because Billy made some great points.
Yeah, I think Auburn is certainly one of those jobs where you do have to have a guy that has head coaching experience. He's familiar with the league, and even though you may not have a previous association with the Auburn culture, either being on the staff earlier in your coaching career, or having been a former player, which is kind of fairly rare. Despite what a lot of people think, you don't have a whole lot of head coaches at a lot of these Power 5 schools that actually played at that same school. But nonetheless, you have to be a guy like Dye or Tuberville who doesn't have any problem adjusting to that culture and being able to adapt to the reality of it right away. And so with that in mind, from just the names I've heard, and again, evidently he signed an extension on top of the extension he signed maybe 6 or 8 weeks ago. Seems like, Hugh Freeze might be one of those guys. I don't know if he would even be considered or if he would be willing to, listen at this stage. But, I think somebody that would fall into that category would be ideal. But as far as what we're dealing with right now with Auburn, I don't know what particular individual other than that might fit the bill of someone with a decent amount of experience in this league, and even more important, having success. So it's not the easiest situation to be in, because I just got the vibe that the Auburn people felt really good at this time last week about being able to land Cristobal, and I don't know if when they were going out there to visit with him or either his representatives, that they knew at the time that Oregon was going to be playing in the Pac-12 championship game. Everybody thought it was going to be Washington, and evidently Oregon used this, I guess, university rule that if they were competing for a conference championship game or something to that effect, that they would not be able to talk directly to any schools leading up to the game. So it was, it's been a really strange set of circumstances, but hey, that's college football for you.
It is. And I don't think Cristobal really even, he was interested in the Auburn job, but I don't think that Auburn, when they went out there, they probably didn't know. And apparently they were en route on a plane going to get the Duck Man, but it didn't happen. So I don't have a problem as an Auburn graduate, Auburn fan, but I get on the air, man. I'm going to be fair. I'm like a judge, I get amnesia when I get on here. I'll body slam Auburn as quickly as I will anybody else. I'll tell you this. I don't, as an Auburn fan, mind at all having someone who coached or played at Alabama or Georgia or LSU. I could care less. I want a winner. Someone that'll come in and work, that'll recruit, that'll make the program better. And if you're that shallow, Pat Dye almost didn't get the Auburn job because there were members on the board of trustees who were concerned. He was an All-American at Georgia. He coached with Coach Bryant from 65 to 73, won a couple of national championships. How can you be Auburn's coach? And he was like, well, I know how to beat you. I know every way to beat you possible. And I know how to beat them. Y'all are scared of Alabama. You're scared of Georgia. They put their pants on just like anybody else. We're going to outwork them. That's the kind of guy you want to come in and be your next coach. So those are great points by both of y'all. Let me say something again about one of our sponsors before Chef Roger calls in. Tom Dorian and Billy, Jimmy, and everybody out there listening. Most people do not like talking about insurance. I mean, my wife Audrey and I are, but Tom Dorian of the Dorian Agency, 6240 Poplar Avenue in East Memphis, is a guy that when you talk to him, it's like talking to a friend. I mean, now he is my friend. I've known him since 1978. Christian Brothers High School graduate, member of state championship team, played football, college football, started on the offensive line for the University of Memphis for 3 years, 81, 2, and 3. Father of 5, member of Curcio. Great man, a leader, a winner. He will listen to you. If he can help you, great. He will. If he doesn't need to do anything, if you don't need to do anything, he's honest enough and he will tell you. And if you're like most Americans, you might go years between making a claim on your property and casualty, homeowners, anything. They have a program you can ask about that allows you to get up to 25% return of premium. It's a great thing to do. Have that conversation with Tom Dorian. Give him a call, 901-328-5858. That's the Dorian Agency. And also, Christmas is almost here. Jim Karras Chevrolet, 2000 Covington Pike in Memphis. George Gully, sales manager, 22 years, over 4,000 happy customers. I think they sold 4 cars Friday afternoon when he was on the show with us. George Gully's got a great team. Rachel, Christian, they're all there. The Karras family's been in the car and truck business nearly 70 years. They've got employee pricing right now. Ask about it. And I mean, you pay what they pay if you're looking to get a vehicle, okay? So give them a call. That's the Jim Karras Chevrolet, 2000 Covington Pike in Memphis, and check them out on our website. But, and bottom line, they will be open bright and early Monday morning, 8 a.m., be there all day till 6, 7 o'clock at night. They're there to help you. The 21 Tahoes, the 21 Suburbans, the Chevrolet, the Apple technology packages, no matter where you are. A lot of us are working remote right now, myself included. Hey, you're never out of contact with the office, clients, prospects, and what have you. So ask for George Gully, sales manager, Jim Karras Chevrolet, 2000 Covington Pike in Memphis. Hey, we got a great friend, special guest, the best chef in the world. Roger, I was telling, I've got Billy Roberts over in Atlanta, Jimmy Hodge, national college football contributor up in Chicago. And I was telling him your story. You were 17 years old. You said, Mom, Dad, I'm out of here. You went to London. You wandered the streets. You got a job by some guy that did a little bit of yelling and hollering and I guess some yodeling too. And a month later, he hired you. And for 8 years, you learned from him. And you are without a doubt the best chef. Hey, if I ever go to the electric chair or the gas chamber, I'm bringing you in to serve me my last meal. There won't be any 20 pieces of fried chicken or 2 gallons of ice cream. It'll be Chef Roger serving me an East London meat pie and some sticky toffee pudding.
It'd be a pleasure to do that.
Well, I hope we don't ever come to that point. Hey, Jimmy and Billy, Roger is a huge Ole Miss fan. Loves the Rebels and also your favorite soccer team. Tell everybody real quick.
Favorite soccer team, Manchester United, and favorite NFL team. Funnily enough, I just stepped back from the game. I was at the Colts game just now.
Yeah, and
Colts versus Texans.
Yeah, you've had a chance to cook. You as a chef, you've had a chance to cook for some pretty well-known Ole Miss players. Remember their names?
Yeah, Chad Kelly is a good friend of mine. Cooked for him up here as he is with the Colts practice squad. So I cook a lot of stuff for Chad and a few other players here and there, and on the practice squad who came up from Ole Miss. They're all family to me.
That's right, Roger.
So we stick together up here.
Absolutely, I've never eaten food. Jimmy and Billy, let me just tell y'all, Roger, we put his recipes. We can put his recipes on the website sidelines.live. And Roger, look, Christmas will be here Friday. Busy time of the year. I know you're busy. And talk to people. You know, a lot of people like to make a turkey for Christmas. And there's ways to do it and there's ways not to do it. And then there's the Chef Roger way to make a Christmas turkey. So, hey, the mic is yours.
Yeah. Me and you have had a lot of chats about turkey, and there's nothing I hate more than overcooked turkey. And, you know, back when I was a kid, my mum would put the turkey in the oven at 6 a.m. and bring it out at 3 p.m. thinking that was how you did it. But, you know, when you do it like that, it ends up being as dry as Gandhi's flip-flop. So, I mean, you know, with turkey, you have to bring the turkey out of the refrigerator early so it's not going in from the fridge cold or, you know, semi-defrosted. It goes in at room temperature, and I do a little herb butter, which I can give you the recipe for, which is lemon zest, lemon juice, butter, loads of different herbs, garlic, and I rub that butter over the turkey. And I cook it on a high heat for about 2 hours. That's for a big turkey, 2 hours, not 4 hours and 6 hours. And that, you know, that keeps it juicy and moist. And then also not only that, but I leave it to rest. I actually leave it to rest when it's finished in the oven for another hour, just to let the juices recirculate. You know, if you take a turkey out of the oven when it's just cooked and carve it, all the juice runs everywhere and it ends up being dry. You gotta let it rest. Resting is the most important part. So yeah, I always rest it for about an hour and then carve it, and it's beautiful, juicy, moist, and not overcooked.
Well, you know what? I'm going to ask you this. I don't mean to interrupt you, but we did about 80 duck tenders over here. And I remember you and I, October 20th, 2018, we're down in Oxford on the edge of the Grove where you can get a flame. And, you know, we had about, Jimmy and Billy, you'd love this. We had about 9 feet of venison backstrap that we had that marinated. Roger did that. And then we had those 80 duck tenders marinated in, you know, the half and half cream and Allegro spicy Cajun marinade wrapped in Wright's thick slab country bacon. Used the orange, butter, and honey marinade. And then we did about 36 links of venison boudin. And Roger, and then Smokey was there, the fellow with the big belly that knocked over.
If you remember, Rob, we had half of Hemingway Stadium watching us.
That's right.
Crowding round, literally watching what we were doing.
Yeah, Jimmy and Billy, this was like having, you know, John Paul Jones and Jimmy Page, you know, and John Bonham and Robert Plant, you know, they're doing band practice. It was, I've never seen a tailgate like this. And my son Wilson was up from Auburn with a bunch of his friends. And Roger, you did something, I'd never done it before. I thought, you know, let's get this going. You did something with that indirect, talk about that, because people,
Well,
it's incredible the difference it made. And you talked about resting. It's unbelievable. It's a 180 difference.
yeah. So there's obviously in any grill and oven there are hot spots and area cold spots, and so I cook things and get it to the temperature that I want it. So say if I take a steak, I'll cook that steak, 70% of how I want it cooked, and then I'll sit it on the indirect heat, and it'll residually the heat will continue to cook it, but not so fast. So I was just playing around. It was like being in the DJ booth, just mixing things around, and everyone was crowding around watching what I was doing. But it's all about balancing things out and things like that. It's you don't just throw everything on the grill and just cook it till it's bone dry and then give it out. There's a lot of skill involved in cooking steaks perfectly and things like that. So yeah, indirect heat, residual heat. When you cook a piece of fish in particular, which you don't cook so much on the tailgates, but if I'm cooking a piece of fish, especially in a restaurant, in the restaurants that I worked in London, you would cook it 65% of the way, and the rest of the time is cooking on the way out to the guest. It's still cooking as it's sitting on the plate, a piece of fish. So it's timing and things like that have to be spot on.
Wow. I mean, Jimmy,
people just think you just slap a steak on the grill and that's it. But it's, there's a lot more skill involved if you want it to be as good as you can make it. So.
Yeah. I mean, Roger, I can tell you, Jimmy and Billy, can we put some of these tips and recipes up on the website, Roger? Because I know that you talked a little about your boss in London and who he was, and was he kind of the Nick Saban of the food world?
Well, Gordon Ramsay, I think some people over here know who he is. Yeah, he was like that. He was a real nice guy, and he was great with all of us young cooks who worked for him. But the moment, dinner service started at 7 p.m., he was no longer your friend. And it was literally just trying to survive the 3-hour dinner service without either getting fired, assaulted, or called every single name under the sun. So you just really, the best thing to do really was just keep your head down and keep your mouth shut and just do the job, and try not to be the one that he decides on that night to pick on, because once he starts on you, that's generally you're going to get it for the entire night.
Well,
yeah, it was about survival. The turnover rate there, most people didn't survive more than a month, and I managed to do 8 years. So yeah, it was a tough place. I can imagine it's similar to Saban.
Well, hey, I want to say that Jimmy, Roger's a huge Ole Miss fan.
Yeah, how about that game last night?
Yeah.
Hey, I'm telling you what, that Ole Miss LSU game, man, that is, if that's not example A of why college football is the greatest sport there is,
100%.
It is. And especially when Ole Miss goes to Red Stick. You always have crazy stuff that happens when they play down there.
They do.
And I thought they were going to pull it out at the end, and then you had the Corral fumble. And I'm going, if you're an Ole Miss guy, you've got to be absolutely sick.
Well, yeah. How about the 100 turnovers from Matt Corral?
Oh, yeah. But that was what was so impressive about him was that he shook it off, and they still had a chance to win at the end. But one of my favorites was the 100-yard kickoff return where two different LSU kickoff coverage guys did spin arounds with their back to who was it, Ely, or I'm not sure who it was. You got your back facing a guy that runs a 4.40 and trying to tackle a guy with your back to him. Both those guys spun around twice. They showed it on ESPN college final last night, football final. It was hysterical watching it. I mean, and with the weather, it was an absolute just monsoon all night. It was just awesome to watch.
It was a great game. I can't believe how much Ole Miss have improved with Lane Kiffin in the time that he's been there. Yeah, his recruiting he's just really good. I think he's done great things.
Well, Roger, you and I talked about him when they hired him, and I said he's got to get defensive players, but I think he is. I wanted him 3 years ago to be at Auburn. And
Well,
Billy,
I got a lot of friends in the equipment room there.
Yeah.
Some of my best friends work on the program, and when he came in, they were very tight-lipped. I was trying to get something out of them. I was like, "So, what do you think?" And they were just keeping it quiet. And now, they're like, "I'm on the Lane train."
yeah.
So he's gone
Oh,
on there.
yeah.
They all love him now.
Yeah,
He's
Billy,
just,
Billy, you watch Ole Miss play, and we know what Lane Kiffin can do. And and Roger, one of the neat things about Lane Kiffin, 2014, he goes to Alabama and gets a new quarterback and brings him in. And in 2014, Lane Kiffin goes to Alabama, gets Blake Sims out of Gainesville, Georgia. He was a quarterback, running back, quarterback, turns him into an SEC champion, gets to the college playoffs. 2015, he takes Jughead. He takes Jacob Coker out of St. Paul's Episcopal in Mobile, back up at Florida State to Jameis Winston, wins the national championship with him. And in 2016, he takes a guy with one of the not worst throwing motions around out of Channelview, Texas, Jalen Hurts, and gets them to the national championship game as a freshman. And Billy, you watched Ole Miss play. You watched Lane Kiffin. It's scary, isn't it, to think how good Ole Miss can be with Jerrion Ealy, Snoop Connor, and Matt Corral and Lane Kiffin and Levy, the offensive guy, how good they can be. And they recruited, look where they went from like 75th to in the top 15, top 20.
Well, yeah, and then just to follow on what I was saying earlier, he checks the boxes for an Auburn head coaching candidate.
Yeah.
So I wish Auburn would come and raid Lane Kiffin and take him away. I hate to say that with all the Ole Miss fans listening, but we've done it before. We took Tuberville and it worked out great. So we need to do it again.
Well, hey, Roger, I got to tell you got to be excited though as an Ole Miss fan, because y'all flipped some big players in recruiting.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I've ever asked you about this, but they're talking a lot about Arch Manning. I think he plays high school football in Oxford.
Well, he's in New Orleans.
In Louisiana at
Isidore Newman.
Isidore Newman.
Yeah, they say
Eli and both Peyton and Eli played there, and Cooper all played at Isidore Newman. Yeah.
Some of the Ole Miss message boards are in a bit of a whirlwind about trying to get him.
Well,
I'm hearing though Archie's not a big Kiffin guy though. I hear LSU is the inside favorite there.
Wow,
he looks.
I would. That guy is a program changer. But Kiffin, guys, Roger, I wouldn't count that one. Jimmy, and I know Maury Gaston's on the line with us now down in Birmingham, along with Billy Roberts in Atlanta. I would say there's a lot of time now, between now and then. But I wouldn't count that one out. But Roger, he's something special.
Yeah.
I wouldn't, but I'm going to ask you, Jimmy, do you think, what do you think it would take for Archie to change his mind? Obviously that's the grandfather and this is Cooper's, kid.
Yeah.
His name is Arch Manning.
Yeah.
Yeah. It would have to be Archie and Kiffin would obviously have to have a meeting to clear the air over what has in the past caused that rift. But and I'm sure the Ole Miss heavy hitters would definitely want that to happen so that they would have a fair shot at him. So it's like I said, in recruiting, things are never, it's like Pat Dye used to say. He would say in football, things aren't always what they seem, and that could very well be the case with with some of these recruiting battles for these five-star guys. He's probably the number one rated junior to be. He's only going to be entering his junior year next year. That's how good he is.
Yeah, it's incredible.
That's an eternity between now and his signing day.
No question.
Yeah.
And the Mannings are big Dave Cutcliffe fans. And I can't think of two coaches that are further apart on the continuum as David Cutcliffe and Lane Kiffin.
There's no question. Yeah.
Hey, real quick, Roger, I know you got to get going. You got a lot going on. Real quick, before you go, give us a little story. This is a dessert, and I know we've got the recipe up on the website. if you could resend it, the sticky toffee pudding and how you got the recipe and your friend did and the story behind it. And Maury, this is a really good friend of mine, Chef Roger Watson, who worked for Gordon Ramsay for 8 years. He's from Manchester, England. He's a huge Ole Miss fan and lives up in Indianapolis now. But I tell you what, you need to go back and listen to the show. When he speaks, it is as if the big guy is speaking, because when it comes to food, Roger's the best chef in the world. But talk about that sticky toffee pudding with some ice cream melting on there. I mean, again, on the way to the electric chair, the chamber, the guillotine, you want this.
Yeah, and honestly, in my opinion, I think this is maybe the best dessert I've ever seen in the world, period. This recipe is 120 years old, and it was invented in a hotel on the Isle of Wight in the UK. And it's one of those recipes it's strange because it's never made, the original recipe has never made its way, unlike most things do, onto the internet. So the only way to ever have got that recipe, you have to go and work at the hotel and work there long enough to get the recipe. So my friend actually went and worked at the hotel for a year until he got the recipe and then left. He gave it to me. So now if you Google sticky toffee pudding, a million recipes come up, but not the original one. They're all replicas and they're all slightly off and they're not quite it. But the original recipe I have, it's 120 years old and it is just money. It's unbelievable. The best dessert you'll ever eat in your life, I promise you.
Roger,
I might think about giving it to Rob one day before I die. So, okay. Rob's next in line for the sticky toffee pudding recipe.
Roger, it is absolutely, and Maury and Billy and Jimmy and everybody listening, it is the greatest dessert I've ever had.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't even begin to describe. The decorum prohibits me to saying what it really is like, but it is off the charts, the greatest dessert you've ever put in your
I'd be
mouth.
willing to give up our pursuit of Lane Kiffin if I could get the recipe.
Okay. Well, we can definitely work out on that one, I think. Yeah.
Hey guys, we got to get Roger. We've got to get Roger down to Auburn or Oxford, Athens, Tuscaloosa, wherever, Knoxville for a tailgate, because again, it's like going, hey man, we got some guys that are going to be playing the guitar over by the RV.
He needs to come to 715 West Magnolia.
Yeah, 715 West Magnolia. We were going to get him down there, Roger. If you can come to the Sigma Newhouse, 715 West Magnolia, Ida and Mary, who are up above now looking down, would be saying, Brown, you crazy. You got Chef Roger. Oh, my goodness. Because, Roger, I'm going to tell you what, Wilson will tell you, we used to eat frat cakes every Wednesday, veggies. And those frat cakes, boy, you'd have to walk across that drill field. You'd be dilated about 9 centimeters, about 20 steps in, screaming for mercy. But, hey, Roger.
Well, there you go. I'll be there, Rob. Just send the private jet because that's how I fly. So I'll be
let me get a hold of Winthorpe and Jeeves, and we need a fourth for squash, and I'll fly you down. We've got to get you to 715 West Magnolia. Roger, we want to put some recipes up, but again, just one little last bit of advice. Everybody's going to be eating, Cousin Eddie may show up to somebody's house that's listening tonight. I mean, everybody's got a Cousin Eddie out there or a Sharon Jean from Roy. My wife, Sharon Jean, going to come in there. That's a common spelling. There's an O in there somewhere. But tell people real quick.
Some of us are Cousin Eddie.
Yeah, that's right. We got to have a Cousin Eddie. But Roger, as people, again, they're getting ready. They're going to have a lot of people over. A lot of eating going on, everything like that. Say it again about letting food rest, and we'll let you go. That is the best advice I've heard ever.
I'll say this. It's been a pretty bad year with COVID and everything. Just don't make it even worse if you cook the turkey. Okay. Just keep an eye on the turkey. If you need to use a food probe, use a food probe. Just keep it at 160, 165 Fahrenheit, and you'll be good. And let it rest for an hour. Take the turkey out of the oven and let it sit outside the oven for 1 hour. And you'll thank me later.
And Roger, one last thing. When's the book coming out?
The book is coming out hopefully next year.
And what's the name of it?
We're working on it. It's going to be called The Private Chef Cookbook.
Okay, because it's going to have 15 to 20 recipes in there. Can we premiere it on Sidelines?
Anybody who listens to your show, I'm going to hook them up. I'm going to send you some free copies, and you can give them out, and we'll hook you up.
Man, Roger, thank you so much for taking time to join us. And I'll be in touch with you here later tonight. And Merry Christmas to you and Scotty and everybody up there in Indy. And looking forward to having you on again. And I think you got a great coach in Kiffin. If he gets defensive players, it's going to be the Lane Kiffin Indy 500.
Hey, Rob, I got one more question for you. One for Roger.
Yeah,
real
sure.
Quick.
Go ahead.
Hey, Roger, ever since Sir Alex retired, is Man U ever going to figure it out?
Never. Life has never been the same since that horrible day that he decided to give it up. No, this team is done. And, me being British, I hate to say this. I love America. I love Americans. But with American owners, we'll never achieve anything. We need
the Glazers.
We need the big oil men to come in and throw billions of pounds around just for fun. We don't need people who are tight with money. In order to keep up with the European elite, we need to spend probably in excess of $3 billion just alone. Because this team is a disgrace right now.
Wow. Roger, hey.
This has to be a whole different set of conversation because I'm extremely passionate about my club.
No, he is.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The man.
Several hours about it. I'm getting fired up right now. So
Man U is the Yankees of obviously the English Premier League. And probably you got to put it in there on a world scale too.
Yeah, we're the biggest football team in the world. So,
man, Roger, I'm gonna tell you what, you are right. I mean, at $3 billion, I don't think that people in America realize how big, like you say, soccer is. But that we're gonna get you back. Hey, let's do this again next week. Again, Christmas, New Year's coming up. A lot of eating going on, and let's put some of these recipes and tips if you can send them to me. We'll have Nigel, also a fellow Brit from Hereford, and our webmaster to put these up on the website. But Roger, thanks a million for taking time to join us. You got a bright future
pleasure.
with Ole Miss, and Merry Christmas and love you. You're one of the best, and you're the greatest chef in the history of chefs.
Yeah, Merry Christmas to all you guys and hotty toddy.
All right. Hey,
all right.
I'm gonna tell you what,
Care, guys.
it's awesome. Rogers, I've eaten with his food for the last 4 years. I'm telling you, East London meat pie with sticky toffee pudding for dessert, and the way he does beef, chicken, fish, but it's that use of indirect heat. And I mean, football, a lot of people are going to be laying around watching a lot of football. But hey, Jimmy Hodge up in Chicago, Billy Roberts over in Atlanta, and Maury Gaston in Birmingham. Maury, Auburn still doesn't have a coach. And I'll say this just in the investment business that I'm in. If you're going to sell, or a money manager is going to sell a big position that he owns, he typically is going to have something else in mind that he believes has better upside potential. Surely he can go to cash. We know that. But with what money markets pay, you'll go broke safely if you dump all your money in cash. Auburn maybe thought they had somebody lined up already. We've talked with Billy and Jimmy and Jake Crane and Rodney Orr about this earlier, but they don't have their coach. It's 8 days in. Steve Sarkisian interviewing today. I like Billy Napier. I like Sarkisian. He's a West Coast guy, coached at Washington, coached at Southern Cal. But again, I said it earlier, winning is a great cultural fit anywhere. And for the longest time, Iron Mike Donahue, greatest coach in Auburn history, was about a 5'6" Irishman who spoke Gaelic and had a lot of success down there. But I want your thoughts on it, because you're a native of Sylacauga. You lived in New York for a long time, right out of college. But as a mechanical engineer, again, you're like a great writer. You think about everything you say because you've already written it and you've already planned it.
Well, Rob, your thought process amuses me. But anyway, I hoped, and my hope has somewhat diminished, but it's not completely extinguished, that we did have a plan in place. And maybe we did. I hope we did. I hope it comes to fruition. I saw something that Philip Marshall wrote today that said, you know what, everybody's raising hell about the way we've handled this thing, but it's no different than the way some other schools handle their things.
Sure.
And that's true. There's an awful lot of truth there. If you don't think that there are power brokers at every major institution, then you're extraordinarily naive. So Hopefully we do have a plan in place, and we're going through a process to get to our plan, and we'll just have to see. And at the end of the day, I'm going to support who our coach is because I support the program.
I'm the same way. I mean, I'm Billy. Would you agree? I mean, I know I'm pathologically loyal. The university is going to be there. Coaches come and go, but Auburn is Auburn. If you're Alabama, you're Alabama. If you're Tennessee, you're Tennessee. And Billy, you're over there in Atlanta, the largest alumni base in America outside the state of Alabama for Auburn people, an hour and a half from the campus.
Yeah, my concern with Auburn is, these power brokers that are down there kind of seem to have a predetermined path that the casual fan like myself, who sometimes musters up a little bit of a contribution every year to get my season tickets, they've got a contrary approach. I'm hearing rumors that they've been backing Kevin Steele all along and want him to be the coach. I was like, that would be disastrous because he's not youthful or energetic or offensive minded. He's a great guy in the role that he's in right now, but to the degree that he may have ingratiated himself with a certain amount of the power brokers down there, and they're just kind of making a cursory, review of the available coaching candidates before handing him the job. I think it would be a political disaster, and it would turn the fan base off if at the end of this $20 million buyout and all the gnashing of teeth for the last 4 years over Malzahn, if they end up, only to promote Kevin Steele to head coach, I think with a terrible win-loss record as a head coach, by the way, that would be a disaster. So I hope they resist the urge to do that if that's really what's going on behind the scenes. But, politics has been and always will be looming large in, the Auburn, football topic. All of us that have followed the program like we have understand that. But I really hope they go get an offensive coach that will recruit lights out, that can develop a quarterback for a change. I'm convinced if Bo Nix was at Alabama, he'd be their starting quarterback, and they'd be talking about him as the Heisman candidate because his growth and maturity is stagnated at Auburn, and that ticks me off because, they started recruiting that kid in 7th grade. We all were waiting for him to arrive, and he looked like he was good as advertised, but he's taken a couple steps backward this year, and it's frustrating to watch. So I'm over that. I just hope that they, like I said, I would welcome, Lane Kiffin if they would get him. Napier seems like a good candidate. He kind of checks the box for a young, energetic guy. But I wonder if he would, understand the politics coming in the door the way a Tuberville did. Tuberville wasn't blindsided by the politics. He kind of knew what that was about because he had been through it before. And I really think they've got to bring in a guy that's been a head coach successfully with a sprinkling of NFL experience. That's kind of what I'm hoping for. That's a tall order, but Auburn will pay. It's not like you go there and you're taking a B job. Auburn is an A job from a money standpoint. It's not an A job from a likelihood of success standpoint. It's going to take somebody who will embrace the challenge because it is challenging. The best, Auburn's ever been is when they could go into Florida and take their share of guys, go into Georgia and take their share of guys recruiting wise. And right now, those avenues are shut. They're not able to do that is the way they could in the past. And those doors have got to be reopened somehow. And right now they're closed.
I might take exception to that. There's Auburn has shown in the last 10 years, there is nothing that Auburn cannot accomplish. We've got every resource. Clearly, we've got every financial asset that any university needs athletically. And we have proven that we can win at the highest levels. We've just all got to get on the same page with the right people.
Yeah, and along the line,
I agree. And I'm not saying that there's not a commitment, there's not facilities. I'm not saying any of that. Of course there is. Auburn people love Auburn too much. It's the old mice and men syndrome, right? They love them so much they choke the life out of the team because they love them so much. And I'm as guilty as anybody. I mean, but having a great year once every 8 years, I'm tired of that. If Clemson can ascend the mountaintop and be in the conversation every year, so can Auburn. And I've told Rob that many times, and I firmly believe it. I've seen Clemson do it. And I think Auburn is a similar program, and Auburn could do it. Now, Auburn's got the handicap of playing in the SEC West that Clemson doesn't have, but they're very similar in every other way. And if they can do it, we can do it.
Well,
That's
let me
just
throw this.
as a loyal Auburn guy.
Let me throw something out here for, and we'll go back to Jimmy, but toward Maury Gaston from Birmingham, Billy Roberts over in Atlanta. If you look at Auburn historically, they're the 12th winningest program in the country in the history of college football. If they claimed national championships like a lot of schools do, they could claim 10. 1910, 13, 14, 1957, 58, 83, 93, 04, and 10. And when they lost that one in 2013, Jay Jacobs, the athletic director, who I like Jay Jacobs, but he made an error, in my opinion. He put it out for public opinion. Should Auburn claim them? Well, in this day and age of message boards and everybody crashing everybody else's boards, of course not. You can say what you want about Alabama. They've got 17. When Coach Bryant died January 26, 1983, Alabama had 6 national championships. When the 1983 season opened up, they had 11. They'd gone back and retroactively claimed some that were 58 years after the fact. But Alabama, I've done
3 losses.
Yeah,
They
but
had 3 losses in some of those years.
yeah, but I've done
41. I mean, they should throw that back like yesterday. I mean, it was ridiculous. They were 3rd in SEC.
Yeah, and I want to say this in that particular year, and I'm going to make a point here. This isn't a slam Alabama because I'm going to be fair. But in that particular year, you're right, Jimmy and Maury. 1941, Alabama was 9-2. They lost to Vanderbilt and Mississippi State. And incidentally, that's the only time in history that Mississippi State ever won the SEC championship a week before the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor. He's on a roll. No, but let me say this.
The best coach in the SEC that nobody ever heard
Babe
of.
McCarthy?
Alan
McGinnis.
McKean.
Yeah, Alan McKinney.
Alan McKean.
That's right, Alan McKean. That's right.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah.
And we're gonna, and I don't mean to brush past it, but I want to say this in defense of Alabama. They could claim 26 if they claimed all of them. That's how many the 1977 Alabama team. Remember when they beat Ohio State? What, 35-7 in the Sugar Bowl?
6.
Yeah. Okay.
Notre Dame went from number 5 to number 1 after they beat them.
Yeah, very similar to what happened to Auburn in 1983 when I was at the Fairmont Hotel in New Orleans, Billy and Jimmy and Maury, the 1983 Sugar Bowl that Auburn played Michigan in. That morning, the Knight Ridder Riders, 32 of them said that if number 5 ranked Miami were to beat number 1 ranked Nebraska, they would leapfrog them to number 1. Well, again, number 2, Texas, number 3, Auburn, number 4, Georgia. Georgia and John Lastinger.
Number 1 that day.
Yeah. They Georgia beat Texas 10-9 in the Sugar Bowl. Yeah, that's right.
Yep,
and so
at the end of the game.
Yeah.
In the Cotton Bowl.
So you look at that. I mean, I remember coming down in the Superdome. I was at the Hardee's in Evergreen, Alabama, or Pineapple, one of them, and they announced around 5:00 Miami had won the national championship. Look, it's a Auburn has a great tradition, but they should claim it. Pitt has all these national titles that they claim. When A&M joined the SEC in 2012, they claimed 2 national championships out of the air. Ole Miss claims 3. Michigan claims 11 national championships. But guys, since 1948, all Michigan has is a co-national championship with the 1997 Nebraska team. And Michigan has lost.
That's when the AP sports writers put together a collection and voted to give Michigan a trophy. Nebraska got all the others. But that's been since 1948. Michigan has won.
Yeah, they won 10 prior to that. But again,
one.
Yeah, one. And I'm saying one prior to that they claimed 10. Yeah, and Michigan has won more games than anybody in the history of college football. And Maury, Jimmy, say what you want, if you agree or disagree, but Auburn's tradition, Alabama's 5th or 6th all-time winningest, but they're in the toughest conference in America. They've won 28 or 29 SEC championships in the 87 years that the league has been playing. Now, historically, Ohio State, Michigan have won 75 to 80% of the Big Ten championships since that conference was founded in 18 96.
96.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Michigan started playing football 15 years before everybody else too.
yeah, and that's why they piled up those wins. But I want to throw this one to you, Maury. Auburn can go toe to toe. You're right. They're a little bit late to the party on building this football only facility, but also Florida was, I think, the last school to build an indoor football practice facility. Auburn and Florida, as close as they are to the coast, geographically, Auburn is only 143 miles from the Florida state line. And y'all are right. Auburn always goes into Georgia. They always go into Florida and get players. And the state of Alabama, they're going to get their players. This year, they only have signed 2 so far. But this new football only facility is going to be close to $100 million, and they need to get it built. But Billy and Maury, I want to say that you made this point. Auburn's got to get everybody. It's like if you ever watch those videos about SEAL team training and BUDS training at Coronado Beach, California, you've got 6 guys and a coxswain on the front of those rubber rafts, the Zodiac boats. You've got to all be paddling and pushing in the same direction. And until you do it, you're going to keep getting slammed by the surf and, thrown back up on the shore, but they'll make you do it again and again and again. Auburn's got too many little splinter groups. They need to get everybody, like, in the movie Braveheart. Look, William Wallace asked Sir Robert the Bruce to unite the clans. Auburn's just got to get everybody united and have one voice for the football, program for the coach. Like Nick Saban, he is Alabama. Kirby Smart is Georgia. Coach O is LSU. Texas A&M, now it looks like it's Jimbo Fisher. Auburn better get their act together. They're going to be like a crippled wildebeest on the Serengeti. They can run within 3 minutes of birth. If not, they're eaten quickly by the leopards, the cheetahs, or the lions. But Maury, I want your response to that.
Well, you're right about Nick. I'm not completely sure you're right about Kirby and O and the others you mentioned, although more so than at Auburn the last few years. But you're certainly right about that.
Well, and you've got to do it. And Billy, you look over there in the state like Georgia, 250 kids will sign Division I scholarships this year. Georgia will sign maybe 10 or 11 of them when all is said and done after the February 2nd signing period. That's about 240 other players. And if Georgia really, Coach Dye would always say, if Georgia really wants an in-state kid, it's hard to get them. But there's a lot of kids like Derek Brown, Tracy Rocker, Ronnie Brown that want to leave the state. 48% of the time, the best players in the state of Georgia go to 2 schools, Auburn or Clemson. You know what they call Clemson? Auburn with a lake. John Heisman left Auburn, went to Georgia Tech, went to Clemson. Calhoun Hall looks a lot like Sanford Hall, the president's office at Auburn. The bottom line is Auburn, like Alabama, they can accomplish anything they want when they're all pulling in the same direction. And Jimmy, from your vantage point up there in Chicago, if you're on that board of trustees, and if you're the athletic director at Auburn, you quickly realize you really don't have a whole lot of say in who the coach is going to be. But give me 2 names that you think Auburn should really zero in on. And again, I could care less if they're from Alabama, Georgia, LSU, or whatever. I want the guy that's going to win me championships, recruit the best players, and get a program that has a chance to win every time they step on the field.
Well, I think you have to include the people, it appears, that are, as we speak, on Auburn's short list. And I know, Murray's expressed concern about the West Coast ties, with Sarkisian. And I just kind of lean that way myself. And the other, though, Napier to me really sounds like somebody that might be the guy. I mean, he's young, but not too young, I don't think. He's been on Saban's staff at Alabama. He's been on Dabo's staff at Clemson. He's been around national championship programs. He knows the process according to each one of those programs. He's been a quick study at Louisiana. And one of the big reasons for their rise is that they've done a great job with transfers. And with this transfer portal really becoming a prominent part of acquiring talent now. And it appears that next month it will be official. It will be, a formality that well, I think they made it official maybe a couple of days ago that players can transfer in any sport one time and be eligible immediately. So the fact that he's been really successful with that means of getting players at Louisiana, there's certainly no reason that he wouldn't be able to do the same at Auburn. And I know that Kiffin has talked about, even as early as the second or third game this year, the best way to fix their problems up front on both sides of the ball is going to be junior colleges and the transfer portal. And of course, Auburn faced that situation this past year with the loss of 3 first-round draft picks off their defense. So I think if you have a young guy that's already been successful, his dad is a career high school coach, so he's been around the sport. He knows how things work in the South. I think he might be your guy. But again, it's there's just so many intangibles involved in, a hiring of this coach. And you guys had mentioned it earlier. You're right. Auburn has to be right this time. And you got to cover all the angles, and they just got to be thorough. But if you held a gun to my head, considering the people that they've talked to or they're considering, I got a gut feeling he might be the guy.
Yeah, Napier's a guy that's done the most with the least to work with, and that's what I keep going back to. But then Sarkisian's ability to develop quarterbacks, he's got that NFL, as Billy Roberts over in Atlanta alluded to, on his resume. Maury is right too. Auburn's got the finances. It's just that you got to be real careful of letting a couple of guys that have so much money call the shots. But how do you say no to it? But there's got to be there's a fine line that you walk, and but you've got to get it right. And man, Murray, I love your wisdom, and as well as I do yours, Jimmy Hodge, and Billy Roberts in Chicago. Also Rodney Orr, Tider Insider. Always love having Rodney on talking about Alabama, but he knows college football. He is so intelligent, and he knows the game. He understands the tradition. Chef Roger Watson, the Rebel chef from up in Indianapolis, was with us today. It's been a lot of fun.
Hey, Rob.
Yeah.
You made an interesting comment there that Billy has done more with less.
Mm-hmm.
I think might be the word you use.
Yeah.
But you know what? That's what Auburn's all about.
Yeah, I know.
Auburn has done more and achieved higher aspirations. And I'm not talking just athletics. I'm talking about the university and everything else with fewer resources than comparable institutions that we compete with and exceed on a regular basis. Auburn people have done more with less. And that goes back to our creed.
Yep.
I believe in work, hard work, and everything else in every stanza of that creed. And what you just pointed out about this guy really intrigues me, and I'm going to look further into it.
Yeah, and it is really something impressive, because if you go to Lafayette, Louisiana, he's not getting paid a ton of money. And again, look, what branch of the Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines, which of those four gets the least amount of money in their budget?
Oh, the Marines.
What's the most prideful bunch of badasses on the face of the earth that everybody in the world, fears when they're coming, is the United States Marine Corps. I once heard a Marine who was on the Yellow River, when they were surrounded by 350,000 with another million Chinese in reserve. That million in reserve never crossed the Yellow River. They didn't want a piece of those guys. You've got to do it, and you've got to do it the right way. And say what you want about guys like Bobby Louder, but I'm gonna tell you, Bobby Louder had the balls to go into the Capital City Club in Montgomery when they first started to talk about moving the Auburn, Alabama game to Jordan-Hare Stadium, and Winton Blunt and those power brokers came in there about 30 minutes late. And Mr. Louder said, that's an old, tactic people use to try to intimidate you. And Louder, as soon as they walked in, Bobby Louder said, okay, well, let's get to work on when we're going to move this game, because we just need to set the date. That's all we need to know. Is December 2nd or December 9th work better for y'all? But you got to have leaders in there. But one thing that Auburn and Alabama fans know is we both bring people from each other's schools, like Georgia and these other schools. Tennessee's got an Alabama guy as their head coach. You want the right fit
For now.
Yeah. For now, you're right. you want the right fit. And Billy Roberts over in Atlanta. You look at the Georgia fans. I mean, I think it's an upgrade having Billy. Kirby at Georgia compared to Mark Richt, because I think he's recruiting better players, and I think he is owning the state of Georgia. But he's going out nationally on a scale like Nick Saban in Alabama. That's interesting to watch. But I think I'm going to close it out here in the last few minutes. We're a little bit over tonight, but hey, it's Christmas. Merry Christmas, everybody. I want to say that the SEC this year, and y'all, I'm going to let y'all all say your last word. I'm really proud, again, I say it every show, of the student athletes about what they've done with the discipline on the China virus, okay? Oh, we're not going to have a season. It's the worst thing we can do. How can we do this? And Christine Brennan, when the Big Ten decided to play college football this season, this is the darkest day in Big Ten history. Are you kidding me? How about that coach up at Michigan State and all the stuff he did? I mean, that's nasty. That's really bad. But I am really proud of what we've done in college. And you know what? I think the future is bright for college football. And to say that these kids today are not tough and are not disciplined, you're an absolute fool if you think that, because what they have done, and not every school got to play their entire season, but shame on the Big Ten thinking they're smarter than everybody. The Pac-12, Larry Scott, you need to get a job selling shoes at the mall or something. You have no business being a conference commissioner. But I think the takeaway from all this, guys, here in the last few minutes as we wrap up, is that these student athletes, athletic programs, the trainers, the managers, the equipment directors like Dana Marquez, my friend at Auburn, give them absolute double thumbs up for the job they've done. And the fans and everybody, if you think that the interest has waned, you're out of your mind. The fans are chomping at the bits to come back. People may have done some different things this year, but they will always go back to college football. It's the greatest sport in the history of sports. And I'm going to go first, closing comments real quick I'm going to go with Maury Gaston, and then Jimmy, and then Billy, and then we'll be out of here.
All right. Well, briefly, my hat's off to Greg Sankey. He's done a wonderful job. He's been a leader. He's been decisive, and he's handled it better than anybody else. And I'm really glad he's our commissioner. Secondly, you talked about Mr. Louder and moving the game to Auburn. And a lot of folks give credit to Coach Dye, and I'm not discounting any of that. It was necessary, but Coach Dye was not sufficient for all that to happen. Bobby Louder made that happen, and Congressman Bill Nichols had an awful lot to do with that, too. He was a trustee at Auburn at the time. He died a year before the game came to Auburn, but he had a great deal to do with that. And Mr. Louder does not get the credit that he deserves for hiring Bobby, for hiring Pat Dye, and moving that game to Auburn.
Absolutely. I mean, and people wanted to criticize Bobby Louder historically for being too involved. I'm going to tell you something. Nobody. My dad's best friend from Auburn was a Sigma Nu, Sam Butner, who died a couple of years ago from Montgomery, an architect. Yeah. And he knew Bobby Louder. And he said, let me tell you something. You say what you want about him, but nobody loves Auburn more than Bobby Louder. So look, may not have, sometimes maybe it makes you mad or whatever like that, but nobody puts their money where their mouth is and backs it up. And what he did in that room at the Capital City Club in Montgomery to get the game moved to Auburn was big time. I mean, that you think J.R. Ewing and those guys were tough in the room? Hey, he put them out there on the street. Man, they may not even get a job in a children's Christmas play. But Billy Roberts, give your thoughts real quick, and then we'll go to Jimmy Hodge.
Well, I'll echo all of the above, but I will say that, one of the challenges that Auburn has, because they, get scrutinized by the media and by all of the partisan Alabama fans, is they always have to really toe the line because they get in trouble every time they do anything that's remotely on the margins. So, they have to recruit, the boosters got to behave, all of the above. And, Auburn had a couple strikes against them, but it's been an awful long time, but they still have this reputation of an outlaw, program, which is undeserved at this point, I think. So what I hope they do with a coach is get somebody that's such a slam dunk, such a popular choice with unquestioned credentials and, previous track record of success, that everybody does get behind it, and that they can recruit people just because there's buzz around the program and everybody wants to be a part of what they're going to build there. Because it is a great school. The fans are ridiculously, loyal and passionate. And, all of us love the environment. There's nothing like a game day at Auburn. The excitement in the air is amazing. And I've been to a Tennessee-Alabama game in Tuscaloosa a couple years ago, and I was like, really? This is the big game you guys talk about. I said, it's pretty dull. And
Well,
pretty
it's
flat
because
around here.
listen, Alabama.
I
Listen,
know. It's
Alabama's
the rivalry that it used to be, but you can go to a random Auburn game, against any directional Louisiana school, and there's still buzz in the air, and it's a fun day down there. So again, a highly partisan comment from me.
Yeah.
But there's nothing like a game day at Auburn. It's a fantastic experience. The fans are amazing, and the loyalty of the alumni is unquestioned, and the boosters too.
Yeah.
But we gotta pull together, and they better deliver a slam dunk coaching hire, not somebody who's the fourth or fifth on the list because they're panicking and they got to make an announcement to salvage, what's left of the recruiting, opportunities this year. So I hope they take their time. Maybe Sarkisian is the right guy. Maybe it's Venables out of Clemson, but
or Billy
they
Napier.
really, Napier. Okay. He's young, and I want a guy that can handle the heat and the politics. Cause like I said, when we started tonight, Auburn is not a job for a young, inexperienced guy. It's too big a job. The expectations are too high. The money's too big. The exposure's too big. And they've got to bring a guy in who understands that. It's not an on-the-job, learning experience. It just is not. And Auburn's made that mistake before a few times, and they cannot do that again. They got to bring in somebody who day one can wear the suit. Just like Saban did when they brought him in, everybody's like, wow, the good times are right around the corner. Nobody questioned that job. Nobody questioned that hire. And, we've got to pull off a Saban-esque hire at Auburn. We just have to do it.
Yeah. And just remember when Nick Saban was in his first year at Alabama, they lost to Louisiana Monroe. Nick Saban was had to deal with the press. Jimmy, you've heard this after the game. He was not real happy losing to Louisiana Monroe. And he was like, man, I didn't think things could get worse. I went back to my office, was there for a little while. It was late at night. He went out in the parking lot. I was the only car in the parking lot. Got in there. I was on empty. I went down McFarland Boulevard, pulled in a gas station, had my hat on, my glasses. I went inside, and the guy behind the counter, I said, how you doing? He said, no, not too good. He goes, I'll tell you what, Alabama sucks. We're never going to win a championship with that sumbitch Saban there. And Saban said he just looked at the guy and said, well, I think he's going to be all right. I think he's going to be all right. So, look, you know what? You look at what Alabama does, and so many of us are married into it with family and everything like that. But that rivalry is what it is because we are so close. A lot more in common with the programs than you realize. But it's the passion and the drive. And Jimmy, you know the Alabama program inside out. We just got a couple of minutes. We went long, sidelines extra today. But you look at it from, to me, nobody cares where the coach went. They want the guy that can come in and fix all the problems and get you to winning championships, don't they?
Yeah, and this day and age, I mean, the coach is so critical. I mean, we all know over the past 40 years that USC they had a pretty dark 15-year period there when John Robinson was very successful replacing John McKay, but then after that, man, they had actually it was more like a 20-year black hole before Pete Carroll came in.
Right.
When Switzer was ousted over the Charles Thompson drug bust at Oklahoma. They had a 10-year black hole until they came up with Bob Stoops. You had, after Stallings left, you had DeBose. You had, I think Franchione actually would have been okay, but he wanted to he never signed that contract because Mal and everybody was told by the NCAA that the penalties were not going to be that severe, and then they turned around and slammed them like nobody's business.
Yeah.
And so since Francione had not yet signed the contract, he never did. So then you were stuck with Bambi for 4 years, and then so you had a 10-year black hole there, until Saban came along, and look at Texas really for everybody thought Mac had gotten stale. Well, look what's happened since he left.
11 straight years with 4 losses or more.
Yeah,
Tennessee.
and so yeah. Oh, after the Fulmer thing, even though obviously they were going downhill from a recruiting standpoint, but they've right now kind of missed on everybody. So every program out there has had they've had their dark period, so it's just part of it. But you have to have wiser heads prevail, and that's including whoever's combined to make this coaching decision. Obviously, according to Rob and most everybody that that has sources pretty close to to ground zero there, that they the big money guys are going to make the call. But man, you just got to cover all the bases you can as thoroughly as possible, and man, just be committed to it,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, I agree with
where
you.
we are.
Yeah. Hey, listen, great show today. Again, thank you so much, Jimmy Hodge, Maury Gaston down in Birmingham, Jimmy Hodge up in Chicago, Billy Roberts in Atlanta, all of our guests. And also, hey, get out tomorrow morning, bright and early. They'll be opened. Red River Ford Toyota, Wynn, Arkansas, 45-minute drive from Memphis. John Dobbs Jr., part of the Red River Auto Group. You know the name. They're committed to service. Everybody on that lot will make life better. Fords, Toyotas, Justin Wynn, the general manager, Rusty Howard, the sales manager. These people are winners. Wynn, Arkansas, just over the ridge in Wynn, Arkansas. Check them out on our website, Red River Ford Toyota, on the Sidelines.live website. Remember, we'll be back with you Friday. Well, actually, that is Christmas Day. Merry Christmas, everybody. We'll be in touch with you. We're on Fridays, 3 to 5, Saturdays, 8 to 10 a.m. on Sports 56 WHBQ, Sundays, 3 to 5, www.sidelines.live. So we are out of time. Don't quit because you're tired. Quit because you're done. We're quitting because we're out of airtime. Merry Christmas, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, Rob.
Oh, hey, man. Yep. Hey, thank y'all. Golly, we went a little bit long today. Jimmy, you still on?
Little bit.
Billy, you still on?